you ready to party? Let's go.
All right, welcome everybody to the March episode of The Review. We have a very special guest here, Jared Fisher.
Back for the second time.
I was going to say, let's go podcast alumni, dude. I'm so glad you made it back on here.
Yeah, it feels good to be back.
Yeah, dude.
Really excited.
Hey, well, thank you so much for, I know it was a little last minute. I had a couple things we're working through, but it's just you and me today, baby.
Yeah,
so
man.
let's
Here to make it happen.
Rolling. Absolutely. So, March. It's already March.
It's almost April.
That's
Like,
right.
right,
What is, I don't even know what the date is today.
It's the
And we're doing
20
the monthly review. That probably looks bad.
Yeah,
But
I'm on 26th, I think.
yeah, so I feel like this year is just jamming along. And it's crazy because I feel like it's only been 3 months and there's so much stuff that's already happened.
There's a lot. Everything from, New Year to Russian invasion to COVID no longer exists to you pick it, you know.
Well, let's it's super popular, but let's jump into let's jump into a little bit of the whole Russia stuff. We were talking a little bit about it before we started recording here. I think you had an interesting point.
It's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting the sanctions that are going back and forth and who's doing what to who and how are we going to limit who's buying what and who's buying where can they sell it around the world? As we've all been experiencing over the last couple of years, the amount of shortages of raw materials around the world. I deal primarily in plastics and stainless and things used for cleaning up water. And so stainless is like the newest thing that's going to start being affected by this Russia invasion of Ukraine.
So you're talking about stainless steel?
Stainless steel,
like,
yeah.
Like parts and
Yeah.
as far as distribution level?
Right. So the manufacturing of stainless steel, there are a lot of large nickel deposits that come out of Russia. And nickel is one of the primary elements that's used to make stainless steel.
Really?
And so if all of a sudden Russia says no more, and just stops, sending it out, exporting it, then all of a sudden there's another shortage that we're running into. So as Biden is trying to launch and bring back jobs now, where we're building back America again.
Build back better, I believe, is the slogan they're trying to run under.
So I work a lot in construction, and we're constantly dealing with these shortages, either on plastic resins, where it's constantly prolonging what these contractors are being dates that they need to make and hit. And if one thing's not there, then it's prolonged. And if the guys who are putting up the drywall, guys who are doing electrical, guys who are doing the piping, plumbing, concrete, all these things, they coincide together,
Yeah, and I think that's part of it where, it's like they use the term the inflation, and then there's all this, and it's like I feel like when it's when you're watching it on TV, and then it's just like they kind of like, well, this is just what you're dealing with.
They just gloss over it.
Yeah, but I mean that's the breakdown, right? Is that it's not because it affects from the top down as much. I mean, yeah, that's it starts with where the natural resources come from, how they get shipped over here, because things get bogged down in between, whether it's because of sanctions or because now Russia has that opportunity to hold back on distribution levels, because not just the raw materials like you were talking about, but I think they're the number one exporter of fertilizer in the world. Right. So, which coincidentally the
nitrates and everything else that.
Yeah, but the president just said the other day on one of his speeches, he's like, I said that there's going to be a food shortage. So, get ready.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa, shit. What does that mean?
Yeah.
And I think just on an impacting level, just as it trickles down, like you're using the construction market, you know what I mean? It's like one thing stops, it messes up everything or pushes it back months.
It's a complete domino effect.
Yeah, so it's kind of like one of those things where, I don't have the answers on how to fix it, but I do find it interesting that it's just like when we throw up the term sanction and we're like, hey,
we're cutting you off.
It's like, no. That's not. I mean, we at least from a country standpoint, we stopped being as self-reliant and went to almost. No, I don't want to say 100% because there's a lot. Obviously, we do import a lot of stuff and we export things, but as far as natural resources of metals, fertilizers,
right.
I'm sure there's a handful of other things. Bioweapons,
oil.
Just kidding. Just kidding. Actually, not really. There's some evidence behind that. But oil.
Yeah.
Is probably the number one. I mean, I don't know. Have you filled up your gas tank recently?
Repeatedly. I drive for work, so it's a lot. I posted on TikTok a while back, and it was like, hey, it's at 5.15 and going up, and they had just released like 61 million barrels of oil or something like that out of our reserves, and then it just continued to skyrocket, and it's now up to like 6 gallons of. Yeah, $6 a gallon.
Yeah, I paid $5.99 yesterday, and sorry when this video edits like cuts. Like it's gonna be a little delayed on the transferring of the video. Sam, you're the best at it. I wish you were here to help us out with this. No, so that's why there's gonna be a little lag.
Full length.
Yeah, dude, $5.99, and I think it was like $140.
Yeah.
You know,
it's a chunk
for my vehicle. $130 for my wife's vehicle, and it's like,
what's crazy is when you go to fill up, and it's like, hey, we can't take any more money. You need to go resubmit. Like you're so full, or you've tapped it out. It only lets you fill up $100 a pop, and you have to go resubmit to just fill up and top off.
Yeah, that was was it AM/PM?
Arco.
Arco.
Yeah,
it was $100. I walked out and I was like, oh wow, it's 100.
And you're
and it was even. I'm like, what are the odds that it landed? I was like, I should go buy a lotto ticket.
3/4 of the tank.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, man. And like I don't know where we're gonna go from here. You know, and like I know we're talking about the Ukrainian Russian conflict at the moment. And it's like there's so many things that are tied to that are like super, like especially as of recently. So if anyone hasn't been paying attention, there was kind of like this little blip of the Hunter Biden laptop controversy. Because if you go back to what was it, 2020 for the election,
right?
Like kind of shortly before the election happened. You had that story released, and then like in all honesty, dude, like anytime things happen like right before the event, I'm always like super skeptical of it. I'm like, it's just one side trying to dish crap out on the other to try to.
It was 6 days before the election, I believe. Right, what it was. Yeah,
and just like and I'm not saying whether it's right or wrong. I'm just saying like that's typical, right? Because even if you go back when Trump got elected, it was like a couple weeks beforehand with Hillary Clinton. That's when all the stuff was coming out.
The Russian collusion.
Yeah, and then like, it was like the. Oh my God, I can't remember his name. He was the DOJ director or whatever, Comey.
Yeah.
Right? When he started flip-flopping on the information, because it's like they're probably trying to keep up with everything that's coming out.
Right.
But so I'm like, these are just like ploys. You know, not saying they're not true or not, but just, you know what I mean? It's like, why do you wait a week before the election just to try to... I feel like people going into when they're going to make their vote, they're probably like the majority of people probably already have an idea what they're going to go to.
Right.
And it's like... oh, this dude's got a shitbag kid that might be like, playing some money movement things behind the scenes. You're like, well, it's politics. It's
everybody's doing that.
Yeah, it's almost like a grossly accepted kind of.
Yeah,
which is sad.
Everybody's
it's not fair because if we did that, we go to jail.
Right. Everybody's doing money behind the scenes.
Yeah, but so anyway, this whole build up to the scenario. That was. Because when that came out, it was like, oh, these are conspiracy theorists. You had that Jen Psaki gal like came out and said that this is not true. This is Russian disinformation.
Right.
All this is fake. Right. And so then it's like if you had talked about it like online from that perspective, you'd get some ticker. This is disinformation.
Right.
Da, 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 da.
Constantly.
Well, all of a sudden, about a week and a half ago. The New York Times ran a piece that wasn't even titled, it had anything to do with this. It was more, the way the article was written was showing more of a kind of like a defense article for Hunter Biden. Because if you haven't been paying attention over the last year, there's been a lot of pictures floating around of this dude like smoking crack and banging prostitutes and all this kind of stuff, which... What you do with your spare time is you. You know what I mean? I'm not judging it from that angle. But the important part of this whole piece was that in that laptop, supposedly up until now, was that there were messages tying in movements of him being hired for these, like, I think they were like the Burisma, I think is a fuel company,
Right.
or whatever. But the multi-millions and millions and millions of dollars are what these people make, and he was like a CEO,
VP, CEO,
right?
Yeah, CFO, whatever it was.
But in his emails, he made a comment, or there's multiple, or I don't know if it's multiple. I haven't read all of them, so I'm not going to sit here and I'm not like the know-it-all thing. I just read like synopsises of stuff,
sure.
which is probably bad in itself. But either way,
It's disinformation, Jordan.
God, I know. Well, I'm going to roll with the disinformation for just another minute, if that's what it is. But anyway, but it was making references of him paying off or paying a portion of what he was taking, which
Right.
was millions and millions of dollars, to the big man, to Big Joe,
Yeah.
to never Joe Biden, but I mean it's the dude's dad.
Right.
And these were conversations
Funding.
between him, the companies he was working for, him and Joe Biden's brother,
Right.
and all these other people that are involved. And it's like, okay, even though we kind of grossly accept the fact that politicians are shady and
Right.
they make these market deals where
Right.
they're
Making moves.
making moves, making a lot of money. At the time, his father was the VP,
Right.
right? So that's that. If we're going off of like if it's treasonous to have a phone call with the other sitting president as a because I guess at the end of the day it is a quid pro quo because he's like, hey, you do this and I'll give you this, you
Right.
do this and I get this, which is very dicey because that's how most deals end up working.
That's usually how it's a deal.
But, unless it's for like discriminatory things like or sexual advance, things like that, obviously that's where the quid pro quo is like, no. But
Right.
if you're going to say, hey, Jared, if you come in here at 8 to do this podcast, I'll buy you breakfast.
Sounds great.
Okay, so that's, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to dumb it down, but I mean, there's different shades of gray in this,
sure.
in this term, right? And, but now we have somewhat evidence that a year and a half ago was you're crazy if you even believe this, and now you have like New York Times is traditionally a left-leaning publication, right? So they write this article and they're like, basically like a buildup of, Hunter Biden's like not that bad of a guy. He's paid all of his taxes on the money he's made, da-da-da-da-da. And then in the last paragraph on like the 6th page, it makes a reference to the information that they got that they can say is accurate is
Right.
because they got it
From his laptop.
Yes.
Yeah.
From the they didn't say like the exact location of the business that he left his laptop at, I guess.
Right.
But it was like just confirming that it even exists.
Right.
And then now you jump into the realms like you can go on and find it. People like apparently have copies of this, which I'm sure if you were the business owner, you're like, I'll sell this to you for a couple $1 million.
Yeah.
Here you go.
Yeah. Full
So
send.
for sure that guy got paid out. But now we're sitting in this point where, I mean, it was, I don't know, it was like 3 or 4 days ago. Someone brought this up to, and I feel like I pick on Jen Psaki a lot, but she's
She's the one answering for it.
right.
She's
so
the press secretary.
I don't have anything like personally against her, but she's the face of that position.
Right.
So, but when they bring that up, she immediately is like,
She dismisses it.
yeah, she's like, oh, he is not a government employee.
And I can't speak on it.
Right. Where
Right.
it's like, I'm like, man, if the roles were flipped right now, and they're not even saying Trump, I'm just saying any Republican or somewhat conservative person was in that position,
Right.
it would be pitchforks and torches.
right,
Like we're
getting-
bringing this guy down, or gal down,
Yeah. Getting grilled.
Yeah, it's just I just think the hypocrisy in all of this is just it's so much, and it's not stopping.
Well, it's unfortunate
that
people can't look at it with a straight lens and just really give and not be afraid to commit and comment and go use your moral grounds here to have a conversation with someone. And it's like this is what I believe. This is what I'm sticking to. I'm sticking to my guns. And to me, it's really unfortunate that the world is like so viewed and you're so afraid to make a comment where you can't speak your truth in a sense to go, okay, man, do you see what I see? You see what I see, right? It's calling a cow black and white, and it's like, no, it's pink.
Right. You're like, no, it's definitely pink.
Pink. And I'm like,
okay, I guess I'm colorblind. I don't know.
yeah. So
Yeah, it's so true. I wonder. Oh, oh man. Hold on, sorry.
no, you're good.
I hope that this wasn't. No, just real quick. It was the. Actually, you know what? It doesn't even matter because the recording goes off the laptop. The cameras, I think, are separate just for audio, so we should be fine. Anyway, sorry, Tim. I'm not trying to complicate this anymore. No, but yeah, so it is just kind of it's an ironic scenario that we're kind of leading into, at least with that kind of stuff, because there's, I would say at this point right now, I don't want to say conspiracy, but there's talk of now this with the laptop stuff. It's more than just the Burisma Corporation. It's called like Metavia or something like that. There's another company that he had gotten hired for, and they had to do with the engineering and research of like bioweapons. Right? So that would mean that we were paying, these Ukrainian companies to make these, super dangerous substances. And whether or not they're for good or bad, and that's like kind of the catch-all when they're like, oh, there's bioweapons. Yeah, I'm like, kind of at the end of the day, I'm like, yeah, it's not good, but like, we shouldn't not be part of it if the rest of the world, if there's people doing it, we need to be a step ahead. So I get that part, but it's also like, well, why are we funding these things into these other countries? So it's like, I don't know even why I'm asking that question. It's because we don't have to be like, ooh, that wasn't us.
Right.
I mean, at the end of the day, that's what it boils down to. It's the same thing with like the carbon footprint. Right. We want to be carbon neutral or
pay someone else to do your dirty work.
Yeah. Right. And so we sub everything out. I mean, which is part of the reason why when the Biden administration came in, it was like Keystone Pipeline shut down, other, refinery stuff shut down. Right. And it's so we can rely on exporting. So at the end of the day, we can say as a nation, like, look at us.
We're green.
We're green, baby. We're sticking with it.
Yeah.
Which I don't knock the green stuff. Like, I'm all for environmental help. I am to a certain extent. It's like you can't just cut things off and not have a transition period other than saying gas is going to be $10 a gallon and then just force everybody.
Well, the unfortunate part about it is that you can sit there and send all that stuff to be researched and done somewhere else where they don't have the regulatory laws that we have here. I'd rather have us be doing all the research here, refining everything here where we have the regulatory laws. We have the people who are in place to keep the checks and balances in place. You send it to China, they're just chiefing out smoke.
Yeah.
They could barely even do the Olympics a couple years ago. It wasn't Sochi. That was Korea, but it was the Beijing Olympics.
Yeah.
And they're like, we're not going to go over there and run. I'm not going to run and subject my lungs to the soot and ash and the terrible conditions of the environment, of the air.
Well, even like the Winter Olympics, the one where they're doing the big jumps and stuff, it looked like it was right next to like an old nuclear reactor.
Yeah.
Not that that's what it is, but like kind of like the old school Simpsons,
Yeah.
I'm like, who came up with that? Like out of the whole country. I mean, like they're like, yeah, let's put it right there. That look cool.
Full send.
And it's just like, dude, I don't know. It's just funny. It's like just seeing things like perspective wise. It's like, is anyone else picking up on this? Because it doesn't seem like it.
It doesn't seem like it. Every time I watch, because I get my news now from basically YouTube, and I watch snippets of the MSNBC and then the CBS and then Fox News, and then you get the political pundits and people talking and all that kind of crap, and that's kind of where I pick up my stuff because I can get through it quickly.
Yeah.
I don't have to wait. Hey, wait until the 5 o'clock hour. And it's like, okay, I'm waiting. And you're sitting here saying car crashes and murders and steals and what's going on here in Los Angeles. And it's like, no, I just want to hear that one thing at the end of the hour that they're holding on to. And it's like, I'm just going to cut to the chase.
Isn't that funny how news broadcasting, like go back like 15 years, but that's how it was. It'd be like 8 people murdered in broad daylight at, some beach. Couldn't believe it.
Right.
News at 11.
Yeah. At 11.
And it's like 6:30. You're like, wait, what? That seems pretty important. Why aren't we talking about that right now?
Exactly.
And that's I don't know. I feel like this is one of those things as you get older. You know what I mean? When you kind of dance in between looking at big picture stuff and then what's happening local to you right now.
Right.
It's like because the car crashes, the murders, the theft, the crazy antics of day-to-day life still occur.
Right.
But not a lot of those get highlighted because of this stuff.
Right. It's all overshadowed.
Yeah. And it's like, I don't know, and not to mention this whole Ukrainian-Russia conflict. I noticed I haven't called it a war yet. I don't know. Well, yeah, it's most definitely fighting. Yeah. But
I look at everything that's going on, like all the different civil wars, like Kosovo and stuff, like when we were in our 20s, teens, like all those kind of conflicts we were sitting there watching as kids, Persian Gulf, and they're in the 90s. And it's like, to me, it's like never stopped in that whole entire area. of the world. It's like if it ain't one thing, it's another.
Yeah, I mean, I am not familiar with like Eastern Europe's, conflicts. You know what I mean? But it's to me, it seems similar to like what goes on in the Middle East.
Right.
You have factions, smaller groups, this area used to belong to this area, and then this is what it was for a long time. So you have these and again, anything that I say, I'm not justifying the Russian stance.
Right.
Like, I don't know enough to really be like, I can't believe they're doing it, or be like, okay, I could see why they're doing it.
Right.
I had taken some classes a while back there was like counterterrorism liaison stuff through work, and it was super interesting. And the bulk of what we were talking about was more Middle Eastern stuff, and it was just like it's just so you like basically like if
you're trained to recognize it.
Yeah, and but one of the things at the time was when the annexation of Crimea happened with Russia, and so there was some questions being brought up about this, and the instructor was super savvy on all of it. And one of the things he was talking about was like one of the main things of the reason why Russia is pushing towards the Black Sea is because they need a warm water port.
Right.
Right. And they because they're
straight to the Mediterranean Sea.
Right.
Black Sea to the Mediterranean Sea.
Yeah. And because they are unable to, I think it's something like they only have like coastal access like in Russia like 2 months out of the year.
Right.
Otherwise everything's frozen
over. Yeah.
So that kind of keeps them bound to one section. Whereas like I'm sure, and not just, and I know it's funny because I think when people talk about it, it's only like from a military aspect.
Right.
And it's like, no, if you really think about it, look at how much import-exporting we do via ships.
Every day.
Every day.
We talked about the 120 ships that were here off the coast of Southern California.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, that's real. That's really happening. All of it.
Yeah. So when you look at things like that, it's like, okay, not saying it's okay, but I understand a little bit of why they're trying to position their country in a more prominent role to be a part of the global trade.
They want to be like us.
They want to. But they can't. They hate us because they
hate us.
Yeah. But and that's the thing, right? So it's like, okay, so that's like one thing of a laundry list of, I'm sure, reasons of what they're either going to say. Because look, as a non-expert, it's like, oh, you read about it and it's like, oh, Putin's saying he's trying to liberate the Ukrainian people from like a Nazi style regime.
Right.
And like when I read that, I was like, that is so bullshit. And I would expect like a country like this to say something stupid like that.
Right.
So I started typing some stuff up because I'm like a Nazi. I've never heard that.
Right.
And then you come to find out that like there's like a big battalion for the Ukrainian army that are like Nazis. Yeah, there's a name for it. They're called like Aldev or something.
Okay.
Whatever. Like you can look it up. Like it's. And I'm not saying that this is huge, like as in millions of people. It might be a couple hundred or maybe 1,000. And like, again, like anywhere you go in the world, there's shitty people. So let's get past that.
Yeah, everywhere.
But if they are recognized as a battalion, isn't that weird?
Yeah.
Doesn't that seem weird?
Yeah.
Not justifying the Russian stance, because I'm sure at the end of the day, they probably don't give a shit.
Right.
You know what I mean? But it's just another reason to say that they're doing something positive. But then you start looking at it and you're like, God, that's just weird. Like at the end of the day, like as a casual citizen, not casual citizen, but as a casual like reader of this kind of stuff,
right?
It just things pop up where you're like, oh man, I didn't know that happened. It's like, because if you turn on the TV right now, you would think
you'd never hear about it.
You would think that Ukraine's like just this, oh my God, I can't believe this happening to them. Look at how awesome their president is. Is there a side note on the president? Like I was like an actor / comedian, whatever, like not famous
actor,
or actor. And now I think his net worth's like $1 billion.
Right. Out of nowhere.
Like that. You know what I mean? And like the same guy who threw his like running countermate or whoever he was running against for president in jail like 5 days before the election. Right. And I'm not saying that guy didn't do anything wrong either, but it's like, if we're starting to look at the semantics of the character type of how the government works.
To me, it's like one of those, like, how does that even, you're running in an election, but you throw the person you're running against in jail?
It's convenient.
You think?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, I'm not saying Trump wouldn't have done that to Hillary if he had the opportunity to, I'm sure. But at the same time, it's like we start looking at things, via the television, via how things are being disseminated to us. And it's definitely working from one angle.
Right.
They're not coming up here going like, look, hey, both these countries have shit governments and they're both corrupt and they both do anything that they can do to stay in power. But I think, I do understand to a certain extent, because at the end of the day, the horrific parts of this is that there's war, right? That people are going to die on both ends of this, and especially it's like the country that's getting attacked. It's the everyday people. It's the families, the kids that, if there's potential for that, then it's terrible all around. So like from that aspect, I understand why we're trying to help as like our end of the country. Oh yeah, we'll talk about that in a minute. But then I also like, it's like, okay, well then now we're kind of like not patronizing, but we're like, like lifting up like their president on this pedestal because he's choosing to stay and fight with his people, which is admirable, because I don't think Joe Biden would do that if the United States got attacked. Nor would I want him fighting anyway, because looks like he's a Walking Dead person most of the time. So
a White Walker.
A White Walker. That's a Game of Thrones reference, obviously. But yeah, man, it's just it's pretty crazy, and I don't know. I don't know. I just hope that we can they can figure something out. And,
well, it's one of those where it's like Putin has obviously come out and said, "This is what I'm doing." It's one of those where if it is that bad, is Putin that bad, or are those people that bad? Are they that bad off? You know what I mean? It's like, hey, I'm gonna push through, and I'm gonna liberate you, and you're gonna be part of us. And it's like, well, what's Putin doing that's so bad? Like, obviously, Russia's there's a lot of proud Russians, right, that are out there. Yeah. There's a lot of them that are also like, it is terrible here, and we just want to get out of here, kind of thing. So, like, which is it?
Right, because it's like it's the question between what's, it's like, okay, so Russians a communistic, essentially, country, even though they don't say they're communist, they say that they're a democratic society, but let's be real here.
Yeah.
But then it's like, well, what's the better in this? Like, if you were a Ukrainian citizen and you're right on the border, are you like, I'm fighting because I want things to stay the way they are? And I'm not knocking people that do that, because I have no clue. This is like perspective from a U.S. citizen, But then it's like you kind of start digging into things, and you're just like, God, both sides are kind of messed up,
right?
And I mean, Ukraine's has it been 50 years maybe that they've been their own country,
right?
Is it 50 years or something like that? Because that used to be the whole USSR, and I think Kiev was like the capital before they moved to Moscow.
Right.
So, there's probably a lot of old people in Ukraine that are Russian that, maybe probably are more sympathetic to that cause.
Right.
Versus, like younger people, I think are just easily influenced, and you can rally them up to do whatever you want.
Right.
Not whatever you want, but
be proud.
Yeah. So, I mean, and again, right. And it's like, I'm sure just like here, when you turn the TV on, whatever narrative's being pushed at you is what you're going to get all the time. Just like over there, I'm sure you turn it on, they probably make the Ukrainian people look terrible, or the reasons why they're moving in.
The reasons we're doing this.
Because they don't call it, I think Putin had a big, he had like a huge, like, was that like a football, like a soccer stadium or something, where he had like a rally for the conflict, is what he kept calling it, not the war.
Right.
Like, they're on a special mission, is what he dubs it as. So it's just all perspective, and it's crazy, and it's interesting because all of this made COVID
go away. Yeah.
Yeah.
I got myself my Starbucks this morning, and I realized that they didn't have the plastic shields between myself and the register anymore. And I was like, and then the one lady behind the register was also not wearing a mask.
Really?
And it was like, oh, and I see these people probably, maybe twice, 3 times a week, depending on how I'm feeling.
Yeah.
What kind of coffee, where I want to get my coffee.
Yeah.
A couple were wearing masks still. And a couple weren't, and it was just like all of a sudden I got to see somebody smile. I got to say good morning again, and it's like it really feels good. These are people that I haven't seen, because I bought a house about 1.5 years ago, and so like I'm in.
Congratulations.
Hey.
So
we're in a new neighborhood, and so I'm seeing these people legitimately for the first time, like my daughter's principals.
Yeah.
March 12th or 13th or whatever it was when they lifted the mask state here in California, and all of a sudden she's out there doing the crosswalk. She's like, "Good morning, Mr. Fisher."
You're like,
and I was like, I was like, "Oh, you have a face and a smile,"
Yeah.
So I could tell she was counting down the days to not have to do it anymore. And the kids were super excited about it,
Well,
So,
I mean, okay, we don't have to get into too heavy on that stuff. Yeah, I was like, we'll go rabbit hole with this real quick. You know what? Yeah, I think it's a step. It's a great step in a more logical direction.
For sure.
Is what my opinion is on this, and it's starting to happen. Right, we're seeing it in schools. We're seeing it day-to-day public stuff, like you're saying. It's about 50-50 when I see people wearing masks or not, like inside grocery stores and what. And it's it's nice when you walk up and you're like, hey, how's your day going? You know what I mean? You're not just looking at their eyes.
Yeah, I've been overtly giving everybody smiles everywhere I go. If they've got, because I'm not wearing a mask. Every chance I get, I'm not doing it. And I work in the LA County and Orange County markets.
Yeah.
And so literally it transitions from one to another. Yeah. And we had my other Orange County representative that I work with. We went up to our Burbank facility, and we were given our monthly download presentation in March as well a couple weeks ago. And like him and I walked into the facility, and our company's kind of conservative in that aspect of like, hey, we're just going to respect everybody's space. Yeah. It just is what it is. And so it's like as long as you're in your own cubicle or wherever you're at, mask is off. But as soon as you're up walking around in the same space as anybody else, we're still doing the mask thing. Which, whatever, respect it.
Right, yeah. It's like,
it just is what it is.
As long as, my whole thing on this is, I guess, I'll respect it more as long as they can, as long as it's, consistent.
Right.
And that's, I think, what a lot of the big questioning stuff is it's like, why can you walk into a restaurant and, I'm good for the 30 feet that I walk to go sit down at a table, but then when I go to eat, I can take my mask off, and I look around, everyone else got their mask off.
What's the point?
But then the waiters got their mask on, but they're not wearing gloves when they're handling my food. So it's like this weird kind of, we live in this real, I don't know, it's kind of this bizarre time, in my opinion.
Our company took the time to put up 8-foot tall plastic shields around everybody's cubicle. Okay. So it's it does kind of create somewhat of a barrier for sure, but
yeah, right on. And you know what? As long as
right on.
At the end of the day, if it makes the people working in the workspace feel safer, I think that's the end goal.
It's becoming efficient. It's it's efficient. If they're not worried about being sick or getting caught up in everything going on because everything that they're hearing, because people get their news wherever they get it from.
Right.
Yeah. And so you just want to make your employees feel comfortable with their work environment, and people are going to have. Everybody comes from different walks of life, and as long as everybody's respecting each other, and can work together harmoniously, your company's going to be more efficient.
That's a very, very correct HR style answer there, buddy.
You like that? I'm in management now.
We want to create a harmonious work environment for all employees to thrive and succeed. Yeah, I'm sure that should be, sentence 1 on the handbook.
For sure.
But no, you're right. I mean, look, at the end of the day, personal beliefs, because whenever I don't have to wear a mask, I don't wear one.
No.
At all. And then sometimes I'm really trying to stretch that to not have to wear one because I just don't like it. And I don't believe that unless you have like a rated half gas mask that has these huge filters on,
right?
That's probably the only one that's really protecting you from whatever is in the air, not just COVID,
right?
So, but again,
we're talking nanoparticles.
Yeah, the micron levels of what things are capacity for, and it took 2 years for them to figure out that hey, wearing your underwear on your face isn't doing shit for you,
right?
But I guess collectively, it is nice that it seems like things are rolling back a little bit. Actually, a little updated information. I was reading through the Firefighters for Freedom had a post yesterday, which is great and still a bummer, but that because LA County and LA City are handling things a little bit differently when it comes to public employees. It sounds like LA City or LA County actually, for those that were sent home without pay because of the mandate issue with the vaccination status, what they did is they rolled that back, or they rescinded all the issues there. And it wasn't a super, it wasn't because I think it was okay, so if you're off work without pay, does that mean they get to come back to work?
Right.
Because if that's what it sounded like, but I don't want to I'm paraphrasing right now, so I don't want to say anything that's incorrect, but from the way that article sounded was that they actually are able to come back to work, or at least as far as disciplinary action, they're not put on the potential for termination.
Right.
Whereas in LA City is still rolling forward with that. So there has been a handful of people that have been let off now, like actually officially terminated, which is absolutely asinine in my opinion.
For sure.
But without, I don't have to preach here anymore. I'm sure we've talked about this quite a bit. But I do think, as far as a positive outlook, that LA County is at least getting it, because it's a commonsensical approach to it. There's like, look, they had their stance. They had the employees' stances who chose to not go down that route. As this is unfolded, more and more we're seeing it's like especially with the Omicron variant, it's like, look, you're going to get it.
Right.
You're probably going to get it.
You've already gotten it.
Or you've already had it, and it's a relatively less stressful process on your system.
For sure.
I had it. My whole family had it. And not to say that we're not lucky.
Right.
I'll say that, we're fortunate. We live healthy lives. We stay active. You know what I mean? Our age categories, everything because I don't try to shit on the vaccine stuff very much, because I believe it's your choice.
For sure.
Right. So whatever that is, respect it.
I just wish they would call it what it was, in a sense. And that's obviously a viewpoint of mine, but it's like I got into it with one of my coworkers and people that someone I respect. I work with her on a daily basis. And as I mentioned, I have to go into the office, and when I'm in the same space as her, I've got to wear a mask. And she also got the Omicron deal, right? And she was very pro-vax. Like I said, do what you want, don't push it on me. Not going to happen. And when she said, "Oh yeah, we've got we got the vid," and I'm all, it felt like the flu, right? She's like, "Yeah, felt like the flu." And then she got the Omicron, and I was like, "Felt like a cold, right?" She's like, "Yeah. Felt like a cold." I'm like, it's a flu. It's a cold. Let's move on.
Yeah, and that's
I feel like they really pushed and they demonized these two viruses. They just demonized them. They gave it an evil sense of, and then they pushed it to the point where they pushed us into our homes.
Yeah, and that's the craziest part about this, because depending on what your viewpoints are on it, I feel like I understand where your viewpoint is. But let's say, because I agree with you, but I also think like looking at it from the perspective of I talk with a lot of people, and there's a lot of people who are on the other end of the spectrum for this, right? That the vaccine is the most important thing we could do. We need to abide by what the CDC recommends and what our government's basically pushing on everyone to isolate and try to limit the spread.
To get healthy.
Yeah. Right. And so when you start talking to somebody and they talk about the numbers are always the hard counter argument, because if you don't research very much and then you turn on the television, they're like, we've had 4 million people die from this related stuff. Right. So it's hard to counter somebody as far as when they say, well, isn't that important? You're like, of course it's important. I'm not an advocate for anyone dying. I mean, that's a ridiculous. It puts you in a defensive posture, because now you look like an asshole that if you don't agree that something's important.
It's if you have the backup numbers for that, though.
Well, right, and then again, I'm like, do you really want to have this conversation? Because it's going to take a minute to explain. And then, well, if it takes a minute to explain, then it's probably not real. And I'm like, no, that's actually not true. The problem is that there's multiple different reasons, right? We have tracking information problems, we have incentive problems, we have all this other stuff. And at the base of it, I agree that I don't want anyone to suffer. Dude, I don't want any family member to lose anybody and anything. So when you have these, and everyone probably has examples of that. If it doesn't happen to you personally, it's probably happened to one of your friends.
Right.
And so when you talk about that, it's like, dude, of course. And I'm so sorry, and it's tragic and everything. And it's just hard, because it's you can't, it's one of those things where people like to shoot down your point of view because they'll say it's anecdotal evidence. Right. So that's if you agree with certain therapeutics, if you agree with not wearing a mask is actually better for you than wearing one because you're building your immune system, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
There's all these two different categories, right?
Right.
But it's just listening to something and not backing up, not researching it either, I think is just as bad.
It is.
And it's okay, well then it's you have your viewpoint, I have mine.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I want you to live a healthy life and I want you to be safe. So do what it is you want to do.
Right.
And if you feel that what you're doing is better, then awesome. And I feel like what I'm doing is safe and effective for myself and my family as well.
Right.
Right. But now it's pushed so much, or it had been pushed so much to where now it's like people lose their jobs. It's like keeping everyone at home, the non-essential business. I mean, dude, just the non-essential business shutdown destroyed hundreds of thousands of lives. Right. But it's for the greater good is what the stance is. So then if you bring up something about the vaccine saying like, well, there's actually people who have died or had heart issues or whatever long-term problems from taking the vaccine, then it's like, oh, well, it's actually a relatively low number. So, we got
it says who?
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's where the controversy in this conversation comes from, because it's like
they're sweeping they sweep it under the rug almost, in a sense.
Well, it's like, well, why can't we talk about that?
Right.
And I think that's something, if like everyone all of a sudden says a science believer, like in the last 2 years, it's like, well, let's talk about the science. Let's get into that. Let's have these conversations a little bit. And honestly, if you can find things that are going to shut me down, like as far as my stance, I'm willing to change my perspective on things.
Be open to it.
Right. And I don't know. I think we've lost a lot of that in the last 2 years, which is pretty crazy.
I think we've lost a lot about that in the last 6 years, honestly.
Yeah.
If you go back to when Trump and Hillary and all that was going on, there was so much going back and forth between the two of them leading up to when Barack Obama was still in office. I think a lot of things picked up a lot of steam with regards to the disinformation is like all of a sudden this big word that everybody's using everywhere, and it's like, who's telling the truth about what anymore?
Did you even use the word disinformation up until about 2 years
ago?
No. Me neither. You know what else was smoking gun? That was a big one.
Yeah.
The term smoking gun became like a hotbed.
Right.
I was like, oh, yeah, it's the smoking gun at 6.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I feel like that was something you used like as you hear it on Law and Order or something like that. To convict, to convict somebody, and it's like, hey, we've got the smoking gun to convict him. He's going to jail for life.
Right, like the last term on a cool sentence when you're going to lock somebody up.
Right,
and the smoking gun was
right.
It was the broomstick in the laboratory, and it was Colonel Mustard. I don't know. I never played Clue. I
didn't either.
I just feel like those are the character names. But one thing I did want to say. I forgot about it, and I wanted to bring it up because we were talking about the Biden laptop thing and, the potential of the story here. What was kind of crazy is that, I don't know, of course it was on Fox or something, but it was a snippet. But basically what they posted was a picture of the documented income of like how much Joe Biden and his wife made.
Right.
And it was like 2016, which is the year that all this went down.
Right.
They made $390,000 for the year.
Right.
Right. For 2017,
as a VP,
18 and 19, they made $16 million.
Somebody's doing well.
Yeah. So
no book deal in there.
I mean, maybe his wife's a doctor, so maybe she wrote a book. But I mean, I'm sure it didn't make
bestseller,
$10 million a year.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's just one of those things where it's like, okay, even if it sounds crazy, like how do you explain that part? How do you really explain that? I'll tell you what he's not tripping out on. He's not tripping out on food and gas prices because, he's making that kind of
I'm rich, bitch.
Yeah, I know. That was like, we even talked about it on the last episode with, who's that, Stephen Colbert. How he was talking about the gas hike.
Right.
And he was saying how, he's like, I don't care if I have to pay, $5 a gallon or $15 a gallon to know that I'm doing something good. And then he's like, oh, and by the way, I drive a Tesla. So I'm like, yeah, man, fuck off, dude.
Right.
This guy, But I mean, I feel like that's like the push, though. It's like.
It's the rich people telling you, hey, don't worry about it. It's for a greater good. And it's like, you're rich.
Yeah,
like rich, like rich.
Yeah, like you got that silly money, dude.
Dumb money.
Yeah.
6-car garage in 4 different states.
Yeah, I tell you what, I wouldn't trip about the gas prices or food issues if I had that kind of money either.
No.
I'd be like, yeah, of course we should do the right thing. It's like, I'm just kidding. I wouldn't be like that.
No.
I'd still be advocating for the people, baby.
That's right.
Because that's what's up. But yeah, so crazy times.
Speaking of for the people.
Oh man,
Florida governor.
Oh yeah, I think. I heard a little deal that he might think about running.
Dude, that'd be so awesome.
I like DeSantis. He's not perfect, but I don't think any of those
Anybody is.
Any of those politicians are.
I think he speaks it how it is. I think he sticks up for what he believes in. He has no problem telling somebody where to go, and he lets you know how he feels, which is great. A lot of the things you see, obviously, they're clips. But someone asks him a question. It's from the cuff. There is no prompt. He's got his general agenda with regards to what he's going to talk about, and if someone brings up something else, he's prompt and ready.
Yeah.
Who was the press secretary with Trump? The chick,
the Kayleigh McEnany.
Man, she was the same way. It's
dude, that chick had like that lady. Sorry, I'm not trying to demean her in any way because I thought she was awesome,
fantastic.
But she had like a binder of like dude, like any question that would come up, and like especially like. She was on the tail end of the Trump administration for all the shit that was going on.
Right, the last 2 years.
I mean, she was like, okay. As of right here, this is what you said the other day, and this is exactly what happened. And do you have any questions? They'd be like, but he's with Russia. She's like, next question, get out of here.
Yeah.
I mean, that was. She was probably the most dialed press secretary that I've seen.
She was fantastic. Like you want someone who's working for you, like working for you. Like she was all in every day. It was insane.
Dude, could you imagine being her husband?
Being held accountable?
I mean, and I don't mean like because, she seemed like she had a lot going on for her, confident, attractive lady, all that stuff, right? But I'm just talking about from the sheer like argumentative point.
Yeah.
Like you're like, you said this. She like pulls out her little notebook. She's like, well, actually, at 9:05, you stated, and I quote, "I don't give a shit." So this is what we're doing today. You know what I mean? Like
we're going to the baby shower.
We are going to the baby shower, no doubt. Yeah, that would have been that's actually pretty funny. I'm surprised it's not like a SNL skit or something like that.
I'm sure there probably has been. It's one of those like I don't watch TV anymore, so I don't even know. Like I said, I watch like YouTube is where I get my clips. And when she came on board with the Trump administration, I showed my wife, and she was like, oh, and she was just like flabbergasted and blown away. She's like, oh my God, she is awesome. The way she's just handling everybody.
Yeah.
And that was just it. She was handling people. It was dumb.
It's crazy. Hey, sorry.
47 minutes.
Okay. Sec. Back. We're back. That break was brought to you by 8-9 Barbershop.
I like it.
I know we got to work on the advertisement a little bit. No, but real quick, I know we've been going a lot about war, politics, a little bit of COVID. Another interesting subject as of late was the swimmer that is a transitioned male to female.
Taking hormones
and dominating the female swimming. And it was at college?
College.
Was that what it was?
Yeah. I believe it was a Northeastern school off the top of my head. I just know it was like an Ivy League school.
Yeah, prominent, right? And
went from being, I think, he was ranked 480 or 60 or something like that, and then transitioned and went to absolute number one by a minute and a half in like the 400 meter or something like that. Like just smoked everybody.
Yeah,
every woman.
And it's like, okay, and like these kind of issues, like I'm basically outside of anything that has to do with children. I don't care what you do. I do not care.
Right.
Like if you're an adult and you want to choose to live your life a certain way, I'm cool with it. As long as it's not obviously like affecting me personally. But in all honesty, I don't want to be affecting you either.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I want people to have the freedoms to do the things that they want to do. So if that's
kind of the point of America.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to tuck your sack back and throw a little rouge on and go out and look for a couple dudes, then by all means, good luck to you. I wish you the best.
There's a bar for that.
Of course. And there is.
Yeah.
Right? But now
there's even cities for that.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And, but now we're getting into these like these competitive sports rules where she's not the first. This is like the most recent popular one because I think last year there was 2 track stars out of Vermont that were like high school kids.
Right.
That the number 1 and 2 were transitioned male to female that were just dominating track and field.
And I can't.
And then it's like, And then you have the swimmer, and then there was the wrestler out of Texas that was just ragdolling these girls who was originally a male.
Right.
And then, because it's like they've taken some hormones, they'll qualify. And I don't know what the testing process is. I don't know, does your testosterone have to come in at a certain level, and what's appropriate, what's not appropriate, how much are the hormone blockers or estrogen boosting type of pills to take. I don't know what that is. But what I do know is that if you've lived your life to be about 17, 18 years old
as a man,
as a male, right, you have captured a lot of that structural growth in your body,
right,
then to now take something that maybe hinders it now, but you've still had all that.
For sure.
Right? So if you are a very athletic person as a boy growing up into a young man,
it wouldn't take much.
Right?
No.
And then now, and it's like there are differences in physiological performance that differ between men and women. Not saying that there aren't. I mean, look, there's actually a quote or a little clip that I think it was Serena. It was Serena or Venus, one of the two tennis players. Uh-huh. She was talking about, because there was like a Tonight Show or whatever, and he brought it up like, oh, you beat so and so, and she was like, hold on, like male and female tennis are two completely different categories here. She's like, I'm great in this one category, and I love it, and I understand it, and this. But she's like, to think that I can. She even said it. So I'm paraphrasing a quote. So
the fact that the number one tennis,
that's not exactly what she said, but
the number one tennis player steps up and says, "Too different. Get real."
Yeah, and she even said, she's like, it's faster, it's more the pace, the ability to cover ground quickly. There's a lot of different reasons why it just doesn't equate at the end, and it's like, okay. I use that because I don't want to sound like I'm just like all one way here. Because if there is if there's a female athlete who could be a pro running back and she's amazing and can hang and do better or be the best, then that would be rad, and I would rally behind this chick and I would get her jersey. Because that would be cool. But it's like, it doesn't happen as of yet.
It doesn't go the other way though.
Right.
It just doesn't go the other way.
It doesn't. And that's the crazy part.
Does not.
And you're an asshole if you disagree. Isn't that weird?
Says who?
No, I know. but I mean, because the swimmer is getting a lot of thing, and it's like, dude, she's like, I don't know how tall he or she is.
She's like 6'4" or something like that.
I was gonna say, because on the podium she looks quite bigger.
Yeah.
And that is still shot of the picture when they're all jumping out.
Yeah.
And it's like everyone who's jumped out to dive in the pool has like already started coming down. He's like
still launch,
5 feet out,
still in
perpendicular
launch mode
to the water,
Yeah.
And it's like, oh my God, like it's just not.
I don't know how it's
fair.
I don't even know how it's a conversation, and I don't even know. Like it blows me away that it's even a conversation that it's even being entertained. Is the unfortunate part about it. I think
it's because the reason my opinion is the reason why it's not, it shouldn't even be a conversation, but it is because somehow it's brought to some sort of rights. Like, it's not just it's like, look, her popularity, it's like, yeah, of course she crushed it. She beat the shit out of every other competitor in that league and set all these records.
Right.
But at the end of the day, it's not, the question isn't like when she's getting interviewed and they're talking to her, it's like, what have you overcome to get to this point in your life? And as soon as you have that conversation, it's now about personal rights. Right? Because it's not about how great of a swimmer that he or she is and the transition that she took, because like you said, she was like 400th and now she's number one by a mile. Right? It's not about that. It's about, oh, well, I had to make a decision in my life to become like, I want to be a woman and this, and then now it's like, oh, how she's so brave for doing that. And it's like, okay, I can even get down with, look, you're a brave person if you want to change your sexuality to that extent, right? Or not, I shouldn't say, I'm sorry, not sexuality, but gender to that extent. Right? But then it's like...
But then you stop playing sports.
Yeah, like that's not fair.
It's men and women.
Yeah.
That's where it's made, regardless of what kind of testosterone blockers and all that kind of crap that you're taking. Legitimately, man, woman.
Yeah, and it's like, and I feel like kind of like, oh man, I'm sure there are people
XX chromosome, XY chromosome.
Yeah, and there'll be people listening to this that are probably like, oh, I can't, like, you would say that. It's like, well, yeah. Like, I look at it like if it's like my kids or something. If my kid's competing and...
You've got 2 boys.
I do, but
I've
like
got
I was saying,
2 girls.
But like if your kids were competing and then all of a sudden they're competing against a boy, not when they're little, but now they're late teenagers, young adults.
If there was some dude who decided to switch over and my daughter is playing girls softball, or I'm trying to think about actual rough sport, maybe what's the field hockey or something like that. And all of a sudden some dude checks my daughter. We're going to have issues. We're going to have a problem with his parents,
right?
Her parents, his parents, whatever. And at that point, it's like,
and then it's like, okay, well, is it fair that we should restrict our kid? And because this is like a different realm now, right? Because they're kids,
right?
And that's a whole other laundry list of things that as far as my opinions on why or why not that kids should be allowed to do that. But just the pure, like just the basic stand back is that, okay, what's fair about it? If they're stronger, faster, whatever, and they can actually cause damage to my child,
right? Then
that's a problem.
Yeah, that's not fair.
And look, and the flip side of that statement is that, there might be a biologically, like a girl, for example, that's just a stud,
right?
And she wrecks shop, and she's awesome, but
she's wrecking shop with other girls.
Right. So it's like then you pump that up. Then that's what the great part, that she's a gifted athlete and is crushing it.
Right.
And she's going to go somewhere with
right.
this. You know what I mean? Not like, I don't know. It's just it's such an odd argument, and like I can't even believe that there's an argument for it.
Well,
it's where we're going.
Think about it real easy. Think about it with golf. If all of a sudden Dustin Johnson, who bombs 420-yard drives, steps onto the ladies' tees,
he'd be a huge woman. He's like 6'4". He's a big dude.
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, I'm going to be over here now. I'm going to win everything.
And that, and I guess like from the sanctity of the sports stance, it's like, okay, when is enough enough? And when are we not going to allow that to happen? Because essentially what you could have happen is that every great athlete that's a male that doesn't succeed in professional sports but is kind of like on the cuff, like,
right.
Hey, could be great, but just not quite enough. Why doesn't every single person just go, okay, well, because
I'm out.
Yeah, because it's like, and again, this is coming from the stance of not knowing what the testing portion of it is, right? Like if it's one of those things where, you have to meet all these qualifications and you have to be on this hormone for a certain time, which I'm sure that is probably a part of it.
We're talking about also the most dedicated, gifted athletes, around the world on a regular basis. So it's like if it comes to being dedicated to making a transition to something to be the best in the world, it's like if you've made that conscious decision to like, okay, I've been dedicated to this for 10 years, but I can't quite make it. And then you're like, I'm just going to transition and do this for the next 10 months to qualify to be something else. At that point, they just do it and then they transition over.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I don't know. It's pretty, hold on. It's like I didn't take any photos.
Selfie stick.
No, that was a terrible angle of myself. Anyway,
I got you.
Yeah, dude. It's unfortunate because there's traction.
Right.
Right, and it's not like one of those stories that's like, oh, you heard one thing and then a little while later, like it went away. And I don't know what the answer is because like I know the immediate answer is I don't think it's fair. But the second part of that is like I'm not saying that people can't compete of whatever gender you want to be. Like you should be able to compete in something. But as far as like having it be like at a professional level or like because for example the swimmer,
right?
It's like, well,
right.
Is she gonna go to like the next like I don't know what the I don't know what the next step is past college for like professional swimming would be.
It's the Olympics.
It's the Olympics, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, and there was already talk about the Olympics doing like open categories for this exact reason.
Right.
So if that's the case, or not even open categories, like if they allow trans athletes to compete, it's you're really mucking the water here on what's going to be fit. Because is that fair? Like you've trained your entire life to be good at something,
right? And
you're the best as a female,
right?
And now they open that up, and now they're going to get bombarded with a handful of like transitioned athletes that, it's like, okay, and like if there's 6 that they allow in, and the top 6 are now 1 through 6, and then you're number 7,
right?
But you would have won everything.
What
I mean? Like, it's, I don't know.
Well, it's like,
man, it's crazy.
Is the easy fix just going? We'll include you because that's what they're looking for is the inclusives, right? Be included. We want to be included in all of this,
right?
So is the inclusion just going? All right, we've got a female division, we've got a male division, and we've got the transition division. Is that what that looks like? And it's like, so you just got 3 different categories at that point.
Right.
And it's like, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, done.
Yeah, I mean, I guess
moving on.
At the end of the day, what they could do is just open it all up.
Right.
Like, don't even have categories anymore. Just let it be what it is. Now,
Right.
that's not fair because that's going to hinder probably a large portion of female candidates.
For sure.
Right? But it's like, I don't know, because that's the hypocritical side, right? Is if we're constantly in this position of trying to highlight like groups. Like, oh, it's like, okay, this is great. But then it's like, okay, well, by doing that, you alienate another group. And then, like, there's no, like, I think there's no answer that will truly make 100% of the room happy. That doesn't exist. So it's like, where are we gonna make our cuts from?
Right.
In my opinion, I don't think that that's fair. I don't think if you've been a male for 18 years of your life and then you want to be a woman, and now once you're a woman, you can, compete in all female categories because physiologically you're going to dominate, and there's tons of examples of this. The only one that it's kind of funny because
the numbers don't lie.
The number if you follow the science,
the science and the numbers don't lie.
There is one time, as far as a reference that I'm aware of, that this did not work out. There was a transitioned MMA fighter named Fallon Fox. And she had a very late transition, like was a male for a long time, also a fighter, not very good, but I mean, probably could kick my ass. Like, let's be real here.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that I'm anything special, but not in like,
we're talking about the top 5 to 1%.
Yes. We're talking about like the elite of fighting in general, right? So couldn't hang. Transitions, starts making this comeback as a female fighter.
Right.
Just beating the shit out of these other women competitors.
Right.
Until she got to like a more top tier woman selection, and then she started getting mopped up.
Right.
Which I secretly was like, right on, girls.
Right.
Like, show them what's up.
Right.
But just again, it's like those poor girls in the beginning just getting bombarded.
Smoked.
And she's not a little person.
I've seen some bar fights, and I've seen some dudes shotgun some girls who've gotten in the way of men fighting men.
Yeah.
And like, don't jump on him. And then that dude's in full flight mode, fight or flight, and he's doing both. And he grabbed the next person next to him who was grabbing on him, and it was just like, and I was like, oh.
Like, yeah, it's a crazy, crazy world out there. No doubt.
Yeah.
We didn't even talk about football stuff. I think we're almost at like an hour.
It's been an awesome free. I didn't know Tyreek Hill went to the Miami Dolphins.
Dude. Yeah. So now they're going to have
cheetah.
Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and Mike Gesicki, and I think they picked up a couple running backs too. They're going to be sneaky good, dude.
Did they get Drake, or they got Chris Edmonds? They got one of the Arizona running backs.
Chase Edmonds. Yeah, that's right. So now they have him. They still have Myles Gaskin let me down last year in fantasy football. But yeah, dude, this well, for any of you football fans here, we'll make this a short one. But there's been a lot of really, really okay. There's been a lot of I don't know. This offseason's been crazy. I mean, Devontae Adams went to the Raiders.
Yeah.
Who
saw that coming?
Probably no one but Devontae Adams and his agent.
Right.
Although good for Las Vegas.
I'm honestly really stoked to see the AFC West this year. It's so deep. Obviously the transition of Mahomes losing his number one deep target in a sense. So obviously they're probably going to go draft that, unless they pick up somebody else here in the near future.
Marquez Valdez-Scantling from the Green Bay Packers went to the Chiefs.
So what was he, number one or he was number 2?
He was like
2-3.
Yeah, he was like 2-3 guy there because Adams obviously is the one. They had that Lazar,
but you can't replace
Lizard King.
Yeah,
but he was like a really tall slot guy. It was different. He was like him and that St. Brown guy were kind of like the outside speeder guys,
right?
But they're not Tyreek Hill.
They're not Tyreek Hill.
No,
he's top 5 easily every single time the last 3 years.
Yeah, dude, he's really good. But
I mean, Mahomes is literally just throwing up Hail Marys and going, I'm just going to throw it to the other side of the field and let him run under it. And that's what would happen.
Because he can.
So, like, you talk about Tua and his accuracy issues potentially. It's like now he has that ability, and Jalen Waddle's on the other side.
I think Jalen Waddle might have tied Tyreek's combine 40.
Right.
Like, they're both they're the 1-2 fastest guys in the league. I think the only other guy that was as quick was Ruggs, rest in peace.
Yeah.
But those are the only like speedster wise. Those are the only two guys on the same level. So now you got them on the same team.
Right.
And Tua, like you said, not known for his downfield accuracy. If I was that guy right now, I would just be hucking, trying to get, if you can pass 60 yards, that's all you're working on.
Right.
Trying to get that 60-yard throw.
5-step drop, bomb it.
Dude, and let it rip.
Yeah.
I would say as a Miami, like I'm not a Miami fan, but if I were a Miami fan, you're pretty pumped.
Super excited.
Yeah.
I'm a Niner fan, so we're waiting for quarterback issues to be.
What's up, dude? I keep reading stuff. It's either Garoppolo's going, staying. It's like, are they going to stick with Lance? Are they going to go after another quarterback?
I don't know. I mean, I was talking to a buddy of mine. They were like, oh, they're going to get Christian McCaffrey, and then Christian McCaffrey, and then the next day he restructured his deal in Carolina and signed. And then he was telling me,
cool though.
Oh my God, I'd have been stoked.
Yeah, I'm poor Jimmy G, dude. I'm a fan of Garoppolo just because I feel like
I was watching obviously watching the NFC Championship, and I'm like, we're just waiting for Jimmy to do something, Jimmy. And then he threw that weird interception at the end of it because like he either like drives the field and scores for us with somebody or Debo or whatever, it becomes like that full team drive. It really looks like the old school 49ers, like everybody has a piece to make it happen, and it's a team success, and he sort of led the way.
Yeah.
Or Jimmy does Jimmy and throws a weird interception or
okay, that pass, that was, dude, they were already down. They had to get rid of the ball. It was a last minute effort. Like I'm not saying it was good.
It was
but he was trying to move the ball forward.
For sure.
What you saw was someone playing with the tenacity, with every last ounce of his body as he was going down, still trying to move the ball.
For sure.
So as a fan, I'm like, when I see that kind of stuff, I'm like, at least you got the gusto.
He didn't take the sack.
No, because as a Bears fan,
you took some sacks.
That's me. I'm there's not many of us out here in California, but shout out for those of you who are. We don't ever have quarterbacks that play like that. Cutler didn't care. Trubisky looked like he was scared, and even though it was his first year. And I'm not sold yet on Justin Fields. I think he obtains the athletic capacity of being good.
I think he's going to be fantastic.
Okay.
It's also his first year.
It was his first year in a bad system and in something like, because like Nagy was their head coach. They got rid of him finally this year. And which is crazy because like his first year, he did great.
With Trubisky.
Definitely a scheme guy. He has his way of wanting to do things. And he's, as a coach, because like, look, if you come to a team your first year and you do great, awesome. Especially if you're a fan of that team, that's great.
Right.
But what's going to be interesting is what you look like on year 3.
Right.
Right? Because any team that has like a one-way offense, like this is, because it's all schemy, it's gimmicky, right?
Right.
And if you did good the first year, it's like, okay, well, that all these professional teams and analytics and,
there's film now.
Everyone's going to be watching what you're doing.
Right.
So if you either need to adjust
constantly.
Oh, no, not either. There's no either or. You have to adjust constantly. That's why McVay's so good.
Right.
Right? Because if you watch the first year that they made a run, I think they made it to the Super Bowl, which happened to be one of the most boring Super Bowls of all time.
Ever.
Sorry, Rams fans. But it was like 13-9, so that's terrible.
It was raining here in California that day. It was terrible.
It was boring. Yeah. But I digress. But that next year with Goff, they didn't change much.
Right.
They did not that good for the capacity was, right?
Yeah, they were still like 10-6. I mean, they were double-digit win, close to the top.
Yeah, but I don't think they either didn't make the playoffs or they're out the first round. It was one of the two. But I was like, we'll have Eric on here next time. He's like our local Rams expert. Shout out, buddy. But what McVay did was completely change their offensive scheme.
Right.
It's like, they got some new players, they're plug and play, but I mean, that's every team every year. There's always going to be some kind of change on that end, but it's the good coaches that are able to identify what the problem is, create a new plan, and then reassess off that plan.
Right.
And I think that, like, that's where the Bears lacked.
Right.
Nagy was just like, same. I mean, this last year, they were like through week 8, and they only had like, I think it was like 8 or 9 passes that were beyond 20 yards.
Right.
For 8 weeks of football.
Right.
Like that's
insane.
Well, what it is if you're a defensive coordinator for another team that are playing the Bears, it's probably relatively easy to game plan for that one.
Right. Stack the box.
Yeah, just make them throw it.
Right.
So that's why it's there's a big tie-in to why I was kind of questioning Fields. Is one, the offensive line is terrible, and two, his release point's a little bit slow as far as strong arm, but he winds up quite a bit before he makes the throw, and which will be interesting this year because we didn't go after really any big names, but we've been just offensive line. So,
well, you're protecting
cautiously optimistic about the season, but I know we're on like a 3-year plan right now.
You're protecting your investment, and honestly, you put offensive linemen in, you can immediately build around that. It's like if you got road graders in front of you, it's like, okay, get me a running back, get me Justin Fields, and give me some linemen. Yeah. Let's go deep. Let's go play action. Let's send the ball. Like, obviously, he's got a cannon. He can send it.
Yeah.
Let him do that. So you dump off pass first down, run second down, third and short, or third and long, and let it go, man.
And I think that'll be as far as like that's like the intriguing part of like for the Bears, at least for this year. Otherwise, it's like they are in full rebuild mode, and they are from the top down. They got the new GM, they got the new head coach, all new coordinators, and they offloaded a lot. I mean, which I actually was kind of happy they got rid of Khalil Mack. Not because of Khalil Mack personally, he was an absolute terror,
right?
Up until last year. He was hurt quite a bit, but he was getting paid a lot of money.
Right.
And now the Chargers were the recipient of him. So now having, like, let's say if Mac comes back healthy this year, you got him and Bosa on the line. That's got to be one of the most terrifying compliments of edge rushers that you can possibly have in the league.
Yeah.
But, I don't know. It happens every year. It's like football season's over, and I'm kind of like, cool, baseball's coming up. It's like, I don't know. I've never really gotten into basketball too much outside of the Kobe Bryant years with Shaq. Right. And it's like, okay, I'm going to try to get into this, and immediately I'm already, like, just chomping at the bit for the football season.
Ready for it, yeah.
But I don't know. You have any Super Bowl predictions? Who you think's going to make it back?
I know everybody's afraid about what's going on with the Browns, but I am honestly excited. It's one of those, like, I've always been like that whole blue blood thing with the NFL. Like, hey, I'd love to see the Raiders come back and be a presence again. I'd love to see the Browns be that finally. And it's like, and I had a roommate for a while who was a brownie, and it's just like watching him live and die every single Sunday. When I lived with him for like the 1.5 years I was with him, I felt bad for the guy because I was a 49er fan with like Super Bowls, Super Bowls, and it's like you're seeing him go through all that crap, and it sucked.
Hey, dude, I feel it.
Yeah.
I feel it, dude.
The Bears.
But you know what? And I agree, dude. I'm always like, I've always been like an underdog kind of team supporter anyway. So it kind of fits that I guess I was kind of born into the Bears fandom.
Yeah.
But
Deshaun Watson going to the Browns with their offense.
Well, that's if all of his stuff clears.
Yeah.
Which it sounded like. I mean, I just saw he made some public announcement.
Yeah, he's been dismissed now twice of criminal charges. So the first time, and I think there was a second one that was recently just dismissed as well.
He's got like 19 more to go.
Right.
So and that's like the part of it, right? That's so crazy to me because like initially when I hear that kind of stuff, I'm like, I know there's a lot of shitbag people out there and I'd like to hear that. I'd be like, well, maybe. You know, but then I also know like the other side of it where it's like, there's a lot of people trying to come up some notoriety, make a little money. You know what I mean? Like for every consensual session that he could have had, that person could walk out and go, I didn't want this to happen. I can't believe I let this happen. Oh, well, there's an avenue to go about this.
Right.
And I'm not saying I'm not supporting anything that's negative or derogatory towards women or anything along those lines. I just think it's a super gray area. And I thought that number was like 24. That's a lot of people.
Right.
So I'm like, maybe one of them.
Right.
But if that's the case, if one of them was that, then fuck, he should be fucking pay for it, dude.
Paying the consequences.
But it's been a long time, and
I mean, he had a year off now at this point. And he hasn't had any major injuries, has he? Like anything major?
No, dude. So let's say that all of this is past it.
Right.
He comes into playing for Cleveland, healthy, absolute monster.
I mean, he made the Houston Texans a playoff team.
Yeah, single-handedly
with Kenny Stills and
Brandon Cooks. Brandon Cooks is awesome.
He's concussion protocol waiting to happen.
He's definitely a little bit of the.
And I've had my share, so.
Yeah, what was I trying to say? I was going to say glass class player a little bit. But when he's good, he's good.
He's good.
Yeah. But yeah, so I mean, potentially going there. They have the running back duo set up for him. They need to get another wideout.
I think they had some offensive line issues too.
Yeah.
So I know when was it Joe Thomas retired there like a year and a half ago. I think that was kind of a big hit, and I think he did it after the draft or something like that. I can't remember if he did.
It was late.
It was late.
Yeah,
and
so
it's
it was like they didn't have.
Yeah, your Pro Bowl guaranteed anchor of your line all of a sudden is like, I'm done.
Yeah, and you're like, whoa, bro.
Yeah.
You're like, we need you, dog.
Yeah.
But yeah.
One more year.
Yeah, no, right? But anyway, little football synopsis. It'll be good. But shoot, man, we've kind of hit the time limit here. Let's well, not let's say anything right now. I just want to say, dude, thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely,
for coming on, and we definitely got to do this again.
For sure.
Something I talked to Tim about a little bit with, especially with like the football stuff.
Yeah.
Like we wanted to run it last season. Like maybe do like one Sunday. Because we'll get the TV up in here and just do like kind of commentary. Like because what I was thinking, what it might be a fun idea is do the commentary like watching the Red Zone. Right. So it's like you're gonna get a little glimpse of all the games and stuff. We can probably do we'll probably run like 4. It'll be a shit show, but I think it would be super fun to do it. And you're definitely one of the people that I want on there.
No, that'd be sick.
I'm a football nerd, and I know you are too.
Same. Yeah.
So
absolutely.
It all works out. But anyway, like I said, again, thanks for taking the time away from the fam and coming on here.
Sure,
and,
man.
We can chop shop a little bit about the crazy, but this is our March review. So
goodbye, March. Let's go. Let's go, April.
Let's go, April. Right, onward and upward. Anyways, let's do. Let's go on 3.
1,
2,
3.
Let's go. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
And that's it. Thank you for listening in, everybody. We'd like to thank our sound engineer who makes this podcast happen and makes us sound very good, Stephen Clark. And to our first sponsor, 89 Barbers. Look good, feel good, be great. Come get your haircut at 2 locations, Long Beach and in Orange, California. Your appointment can be booked at 89barbers.com. That is EIGHTNINEBARBRERS. 89barbers.com. Again, look good, feel good, be great. Check it out. It's my barber. He is the man. Thanks, everybody. Bye.